What is up, everybody? Welcome to my very first episode of the Leadership Chronicles. This episode, or more or less, this podcast, was born out of two big things happening in my life right now. Foremost, and most importantly, my recent journey into Christianity, and secondly, my experience and learning in my educational leadership master's program. Now, naturally, I had to put these two together so I can break down what leadership is in a way that made sense to me. Not just in history or, not just for my classroom, but in real life. Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm also a teacher. Anyway, onward. Today, we're going to go ahead and dive into what is known as the great man theory. Now, this is an old school theory that proposes that history was shaped by a handful of legendary leaders who were just born different. But are great leaders actually born, or do they just get thrown into the fire and have to learn how to make tacos with what they got? And to make this even more real, we're going to go ahead and tie in these leadership styles with the book of Judges. Because, if you think modern leaders are wild, wait till you hear about these biblical OGs. So sit back, relax, and let's talk about why history's greatest leaders might just be the best case studies in bad decision making, and why leadership isn't about how you start, but about how you finish. All right, so the great man theory says that leaders are not made, they are born. Like some people just get, straight up out of the womb, holding a sword and giving motivational speeches. Think of characters like Napoleon, Lincoln, Alexander the Great. All these guys supposedly have the gift from day one. No training, no mistakes, just pure, uncut leadership. But if that were true, then why do some of history's most famous leaders have arcs, like a telenovela? Betrayal, downfall, redemption. It's all there. Even the most natural leaders made mistakes that make you wonder if they were just winging it the whole time. Now, let's take it back to academia for a second. Modern leadership studies, particularly transformational and servant leadership theories, argue that leadership isn't some innate trait. It's cultivated through experience, emotional intelligence, and situational adaptability. Which means that maybe Napoleon wasn't born a leader. He just figured out how to work his way up, one bad decision at a time. And let's be real. History tends to exaggerate. You ever notice how all these great men theories leave out the people who actually made things happen? Like, sure, Julius Caesar was brilliant, but somebody had to hold the spears. Somebody had to hold the spears and make sure Rome didn't fall apart when he was out there conquering Gaul. That's why the great man theory has a lot in common with the book of Judges, because if you think these so-called great men were flawless, well, oh boy, I got some biblical cheesemith for you. Let's go ahead and dive into the book of Judges. The book of Judges is basically the ancient world version of Real Housewives, with a whole bunch of people with questionable judgment making very big decisions that somehow changed the course of history. And yet, despite their flaws, these leaders still played a role in God's plan. Let's start off with Gideon. My guy was literally hiding when God called him to lead. Imagine getting your divine calling while you're like under your sheets in your PJs, and then guess what he does? He doubts it. He asks for a sign. He doesn't even ask for a sign once. He asks for it twice. It's like getting a job offer and then saying, "Are you sure?" But despite all that, Gideon still leads Israel to victory, proving that leadership isn't about being fearless. It's about stepping up even when you're scared. Then there's Samson. Now, if the great man theory was a person, it would be this guy. Samson had everything. He had strength, he had charisma, divine favor, and let's be honest, this dude probably had a jawline that made Philistine women rethink their alliances. But what did he not have? Wisdom. My man was making bad relationship choices. Like he was on a reality dating show. Think of Bachelorette. And eventually or The Bachelor, that's what it's called, right? Yeah, The Bachelor. And eventually, anyway, it cost him. It cost him a lot. It cost him everything. He's proof that natural ability means nothing if you lack discipline and accountability. And then we have Deborah. Now, this is where things get interesting. Deborah was not a judge. She was a prophet, a military strategist. Oh man, I said she was not a judge. I meant to say she was not just a judge. She was also a prophet, a military strategist, and a legit hardcore leader. And yet she doesn't fit the great man mold at all. She wasn't leading because of brute strength or family legacy. She was leading because she had wisdom, courage, and the trust of her people. And here's the kicker. She was the only judge in the entire book who actually led well from start to finish. No scandal, no tragic downfall, just steady, effective leadership. So, where's her statue? No. What does this matter? What's this mean for us? What's the lesson here? Leadership isn't just about being born with a sauce. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Some leaders rise because they were put in the right place at the right time, but true leadership is about growth, adaptability, and faith. And this is where modern leadership theory actually aligns with scripture. Transformational leadership, which emphasizes vision, inspiration, and personal development, is exactly what we see with leaders like Gideon and Deborah. Meanwhile, Samson is a textbook case of what happens when you have high charismatic leadership but zero regulation. So if you're out here thinking, man, I don't have what it takes to be a leader, just remember, Gideon was scared, Samson was reckless, and Deborah, she was not the expected leader, but she was the right one. Leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up. It's about learning. It's about faith. And sometimes it's about stepping into a role, even when you feel like you have no business being there. Okay, so that's it for today's episode of the Leadership Chronicles. If you like this, please share it with your primos, share it with your pastor, or just send it to that one guy at work who thinks he's a leader because he sends really long emails. And remember, great leadership isn't about being born for it. It's about stepping up. Catch you guys next time.